When you think of Jesus, you probably think of his stories, the parables. We've all heard them, and we usually think of them as these simple, folksy tales about farmers and seeds, right? Meant to make big spiritual truths easy to understand. But what if that's not just a little bit wrong? What if it's completely backward?
What if the point of these stories wasn't really to clarify, but to complicate things? To actually act as a filter for his audience, separating the people who were genuinely curious from the ones who were just kind of coasting along.
And hey, this isn't just some modern take. The paradox comes straight from the source. When his own disciples pulled him aside and asked, "Hey, why do you talk to people in these riddles?" He gave this shocking answer. He basically said he did it so that people would see but not really perceive, and hear but not actually understand. I mean, what does that even mean? What in the world is going on here?
Okay, so here's how we're going to unpack this whole paradox. First, we're going to look at how these stories were built to both reveal and conceal truth at the exact same time. Then, we'll dive into what they actually show us about God's kingdom, its surprising growth, and its incredible value. And finally, we'll see how every single parable is really a personal invitation for you to start seeking.
All right, let's tackle that big why. Why would you teach in a way that you know some people just aren't going to get? Well, the short answer is, that was the whole point. It was completely by design. The parables were basically crafted to be a kind of filter for the human heart.
So the word itself actually gives us a little clue here. Parable comes from a Greek word parabole, which means to throw alongside. You're taking a story and placing it right next to a deeper truth to help light it up. But, and this is the key, not everyone is ready or willing to see that light. Whether it illuminates anything depends entirely on the person listening.
So, you see, the parables are basically a divine game of hide and seek. Jesus isn't trying to lock people out with a bunch of confusing riddles. He's trying to make us want to find the meaning. He hides it just enough so that only those who are genuinely curious, the ones who feel that little tug on their heart, will take the next step and ask, wait, what did he mean by that? That search for the story's meaning becomes the very first step towards seeking God himself.
Think about it like this. It's a great analogy. The very same sun that melts butter also hardens clay into a brick. It's the same sun, same heat, but a totally different reaction based on the substance. Well, the parables work exactly like that. For an open, receptive heart, the story just melts right in and starts to create change. But for a heart that's already cynical and closed off, that exact same story just makes it harder. The parable doesn't judge, it just reveals what's already inside.
And see, this gets right to the heart of the problem Jesus was trying to solve. Spiritual complacency. People's hearts had just gotten dull and calloused over, almost numb to God's presence. So the parables were designed to be like a little stone in your shoe. You know, you can try to ignore it for a while, but eventually that little bit of discomfort makes you stop, pay attention, and finally do something about it. They're meant to wake us up.
And for anyone who is awakened, the parables lay out this really clear path forward. It all starts with that little desire to seek. That seeking then leads to real understanding. But it doesn't just stop in your head. That understanding pushes you to return to God, and that return is what ultimately brings healing. It's this beautiful, logical chain reaction all kicked off by a simple story.
Okay, so if that's the why behind the parables, then what's the central message they're trying to get across? Well, one of the biggest themes is the totally surprising, almost upside-down way God's kingdom grows in the world.
You know, if you were there expecting a kingdom to show up with trumpets and armies and a big show of force, these parables would have been, well, really confusing, because they consistently paint this picture of a kingdom that starts incredibly small, like almost invisibly small, but then grows into something absolutely unstoppable and world-changing.
Just look at these two famous examples. They're like twin parables. You've got the mustard seed, which was famously one of the tiniest seeds they knew, and yet it grows into this huge plant, big enough for birds to find shelter in. Then there's the leaven. Just a little bit gets hidden inside this massive batch of dough. We're talking like 50, 60 pounds of it, and then quietly, invisibly, it transforms the entire thing. The message here is so clear. God's kingdom doesn't conquer from the outside in, it transforms from the inside out, quietly, powerfully, and inevitably. So if this kingdom grows in such a powerful way, the parables also have a lot to say about its unbelievable value and the total all-in commitment it asks of you once you finally see what it's really worth. The parable of the hidden treasure just nails this. A guy's just going about his day, and he literally stumbles upon a life-changing treasure buried in a field. Now pay attention to his reaction.
It isn't a cold calculation, it's pure, unfiltered joy. And that joy is so powerful that selling everything he owns to get that field doesn't even feel like a sacrifice. It feels like the smartest, most amazing deal he could ever make. He's not losing anything, he's gaining everything.
There's this quote from the missionary Jim Elliot that just captures the logic here perfectly. He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose. The man in the story gives up his temporary stuff, things he couldn't keep forever anyway, to get a treasure that's eternal, something that can never be taken from him. When you look at it that way, his choice isn't crazy at all. It's the most rational thing in the world.
But that, of course, raises the big question, doesn't it? If this treasure is so amazing, why isn't everybody dropping everything they own to go find it? If the kingdom is that wonderful, why do so many people just walk right past that field every day and not even notice?
And that question brings us right back full circle to the very first parable we often hear, the parable of the sower. See, the problem was never the seed. That's the message of the kingdom. The problem is the soil, the condition of our own hearts. Some hearts are just too hard-packed for the message to even get in. Others are too shallow for it to grow deep roots. And some are just too crowded and choked out by all the worries and desires of the world. It's only the good soil, the heart that's prepared and ready, that can truly see the treasure and let it grow into something amazing.
So when you put all of this together, you start to see that these parables are so much more than just nice little stories. They're actually a direct and very personal challenge to every single one of us who hears them.
And here is the absolute bottom line. We are not supposed to listen to these stories and try to figure out what kind of soil other people are. The point is never to look around and ask, why don't they get it? The point is always, always self-examination. The parables are meant to be a mirror held up to our own lives, our own hearts. In the end, understanding the parables isn't some passive intellectual game. Real understanding is proven by what you do. It's not enough to just hear the story of the hidden treasure and think, wow, what a great story. The blessing, the real life change, comes when you're so moved by it that you joyfully recenter your entire life around finding that treasure for yourself.
And so, that's where we land. The parables aren't meant to be simple answers. They're meant to be profound questions. They're designed to poke at us, to challenge our priorities, and to invite us to actually look inside. They are that little stone in our shoe, forcing us to stop and finally ask ourselves, what kind of soil is my heart? And am I really willing to seek the treasure that's hidden right here in front of me?